Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Barely, but yeah.
Yes, we can.
Barely. All right, let's crank it up.
You're a fairly quiet guy by nature, but
That is true.
Trying to get. I'm just gonna go live, and then we're just gonna sit here for a little bit because I gotta set some stuff up. Or you guys can talk. I don't care.
Check.
yeah, you're good now, Chris.
Chris is doing the
Okay,
band
cool.
stuff.
2 1 2 1 2.
Unique New York.
Oh God.
The Human Torch was denied a bank loan today.
Let me see.
Hey, Chris, do you like Rammstein?
Really,
No?
a little bit too on the like industrial, like mall metal for my personal taste. No offense, I don't mean that.
No.
in a bad way.
I figured you'd get down with like Rammstein for some reason, but they're weird. They're like
Yeah, it's
poppy metal.
yeah, right. It's like like
They call themselves dance metal.
yeah, which is a fair assessment, I think.
Yeah. Have you ever been into industrial?
No, I kind of like missed that like era of the '90s.
Yeah.
somehow, you know.
That's cool.
So I had a thought about just like opening this up to everybody to like get other people's opinions on the notes. What do you guys think of that?
Can we limit our population on here to like 5?
I was gonna say like that can become a shit show pretty quickly if it's not like somewhat structured.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, if somebody wants to come in, let me know and I'll send them the link.
Okay.
And then we can yeah. Because I remember that one time I did it with like 50 people and that was crazy.
Yeah,
It's a
that
good
was hard to watch.
Yeah. Can you see YouTube comments? I can. And so you'll be able to shortly. I set up a thing where like you can see YouTube comments now. And I can click on them and they do this on screen. Woo. You guys can't see that,
No, we can't see anything.
but everybody else can.
I watched the Facebook Live just so I can see comments in there, but
Yeah. I'm gonna try to. So I set up like a code that it's janky, but it pulls comments from Facebook and from YouTube, and then compiles it into a separate website, and then streaming software reads that website. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and it always takes a little while to work. So like we've got comments in Facebook, but they haven't shown up yet because it just hasn't. The page hasn't refreshed. It's weird. Anyway, computers suck. I don't know how you do it, Chris.
I basically just complain about how computers suck all day long.
that's your job description.
Yeah.
Find creative ways to explain how bad computers are.
Especially JavaScript. I'm pretty sure I say JavaScript fucking sucks. Like
Yeah.
5 times a day.
Well, most of the things that you need to do in JavaScript, you could just go to like GitHub or whatever and steal code, right? Like 90%. I'd imagine 90% of a software developer's job is stealing code from GitHub.
Well, no, there's this website called Stack Overflow, and it's
Stack Overflow.
That copy pasting from Stack Overflow is like that's like the entry level. If you can get through that, then you're like 80% of the way there.
Nice.
Alberta's education minister wants people in universities to learn how to code with pen and paper.
What?
Yeah, that's what she said. She said she wants to get them back into doing things like coding with pen and paper. It's like, fuck, I hope you got a lot of paper, man.
That's like military cryptography. Like,
yeah.
like,
You ever see that picture of that lady that wrote the code for the first space shuttle launch or something like that, and she's standing next to the stack of papers, and it's as tall, if not a little bit taller than her, than she is, right?
But wasn't that a printout? I think that was a printout.
Well, but
like
still.
Well, I mean, it will help with unemployment in Canada because you write out, like, say you're designing a website, you write out all the code, then you got to hand it to somebody to type it in. And It's like, yeah, it's like
Steve Jobs.
Yeah, it's the senior developer, and then he's got an assistant that does all his typing for him. I got to get one of those for 12 Treasures. My website sucks now. It's hard. Like, I don't know. I was thinking about completely redesigning the whole thing.
When you start with WordPress, it's hard to.
It's limiting
go up from there.
Yeah, it really is. Like I worked with a guy who's really into, I don't know if it's Drupal or Drupal. I don't know how you pronounce it. Yeah. And he's like, you really need to convert from WordPress to Drupal. And I was like, I don't even know how to begin to do that.
That's bad advice.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured.
Friends don't let friends use PHP. There's people like swearing at me right now, probably. Oh dear.
People are just saying that, yeah, Stack Overflow is great to use steel code.
The irony is that Facebook is also built with PHP, so getting a little meta.
Never minding my own business wants me to redesign 12 Treasures. Like, that's a can of worms that you don't want to open, though. That would be, it's difficult. There's a lot of information there. Like, it's really hard to make a site with a lot of information that doesn't look like a magazine or, you know, like a magazine style site. I don't know. I'm not that good at design. Like, have you seen our t-shirts? I'm just not a designer.
Get on Fiverr. See what you can get.
Pay some dude in India $6 to develop a website for.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. We got there's some cool stuff coming on the website. Like, we were trying to figure out a way to migrate data from one platform to the other to try to make some. I don't know, but redesigning the whole thing's a pain in the ass.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, we're supposed to talk about the note. Let's see. Somebody told me. I'm reading the comments. Somebody told me to. I don't know what I was saying, but obviously I didn't. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we're supposed to talk about these notes. So the first question that I have for both of you is: did they change anything for you?
Chris, you want to go first?
Well, I mean, it might be like a self-bias, but I feel like some elements of those notes confirmed some hypotheses that I had put out in the world. So
yeah, but that really didn't like
felt kind of good.
It confirmed, but it didn't really change, right?
No,
like you already had those ideas, so it didn't really change anything. Cole, did it really change anything for you?
Not as far as like actually hunting for the casks. No, it just kind of. It's just extra information that we didn't have before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a term used in art called kitsch, and kitsch is like, for instance, the flower pattern on my coffee cup here, right? It serves no purpose to the function of the cup itself. It makes it look good, but it doesn't necessarily make it more drinkable or anything like that. These notes kind of are like that to me. Like, it's cool information to have. It's there. But it doesn't really do anything as far as move the hunt, right? Like,
is that what kitschy means? I didn't know that. I thought it was like, oh God, not stylish, but just like sort of,
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So one thing that I complain about a lot is when people use these like ad hominem arguments. Like, they'll say like, oh, well, BP wouldn't have done that, which is like something we actually can physically never know unless we have physical evidence where he either said don't do this or do this. And I think these notes get the closest to that. So no one can ever say he wasn't influenced by a field guide to the Fair People or that other book.
Yeah,
because he clearly was. It is referenced in here multiple times. So that now becomes a fact of the secret that we know. Yeah. Whereas before it was
just sort of conjecture. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And
right.
Like, I saw, like, I just want to throw this out because I really want to talk about it, and it's going to be a huge bone to Chris. But as soon as I saw, was it Wagner in those notes, I was like, holy shit. Like, because that was part of you guys' thing that I just didn't buy. I completely didn't buy it. I was like, it works. It's stretchy, but it works. And then to see it in Byron's handwriting, like that was nuts. Like that, it can't be a coincidence, right? There's no way that can be a coincidence.
What are you talking about?
Chris, want to let us know?
So when we did the month methodology and we looked at February, the big thing in the front and center in that painting is a ring. And as you read the front of the book, it talks about Rhine Maidens. And when you read the back of the book, it talks about Wagner. So Wagner plus Rhine Maidens equals Der Ring, which is like the huge trilogy. It's like his tour de force. Everyone knows it if you're into that kind of stuff. So for us, we were like, okay, so how does this play into the German immigration, to the month of February, to the primrose, to that stuff? So like we started trying to like work through, what does this mean to the puzzle? And it was validating to me to see it as sort of his description to, I guess this to Joellen of like, here's like a thematic to put on the cask or whatever it is. And it happens to align with the same theme that we were sort of like pulling out of the image and the text for that particular like puzzle pairing.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it doesn't get us closer to the cask per se, but it does give us bounds. Yeah, it gives us like boundaries to work with, where it's not just all random noise. All of a sudden, we not only did we have like what felt like a pretty what's the right word, consistent interpretation, is now consistent and at least confirmed in the sense that we know that it was in his mind.
Yeah.
So the next question we have to ask is, how would or could he have used this to build out the puzzle? So that would be where to go next.
How much of this do you think we can attribute to the puzzle itself? Because a lot of this doesn't matter towards the puzzle. It's like what Cole was saying. It's fun to know, but it doesn't help with the puzzle. Has there been anything that you've seen that you think directly helps the puzzle? And not just in a way of putting things in like a fence. You know? Not just a way of putting things in boundaries.
Well, the China one I also found very interesting, because it sort of takes from that little paragraph in the front of the book about San Francisco, and it talks about the moon goddess and the archer that put out the 7 or the 9 suns or whatever, right? So ridden by a tall young archer and a silk-gowned queen. So if you know how I feel about San Francisco, Sun Yat-sen in St. Mary's Square plays a pretty pivotal role, and the whole theme there was like this marriage of the sun and the moon.
Yeah.
And that I feel is also here in there.
To your point too, Chris, I think like these notes sort of make like a new, I'm going to use the word new, but take it kind of different than you might in a different context. But like, it gives us sort of a new connection to the immigration idea, right? Like, because it shows, like, it gives an example of each thing like on the cask that is related to the immigration, and it starts to sort of solidify different cultures. Like the litany sort of already does that for us, and of course the decades of research that people have done have sort of made those connections already. But this is sort of like, solidifying those connections in a different sense. Maybe not super solidly per se, but it is just another line drawn to the immigration themes of the whole puzzle, right?
And like, even when I got into The Secret, the immigration stuff wasn't front and center.
Mm-mm.
I mean, that's really only been brought forward recently as important.
Where, seeing these notes, obviously it was front and center for the creators at the time, that might not have gotten translated well, or something about how the ones that were solved without it. Or in the case of Chicago, the people still argue about what exactly the connection to the immigration is.
If I can play devil's advocate for a second, like, is it possible for those things to have been really important for the creators, but not necessarily for those that have to solve the puzzle, right? Like, maybe that's one of those sneaky connections that they put in there that was like, that's just for us to know, sort of thing, right? Like, I'm sure there's tons of stuff in these puzzles that are just for the creators to know, but I don't know.
Or was it important to the story and not the hunt? Like,
sure. Yeah. Well put. Yeah. That's yeah.
Yeah. But it doesn't seem to just be important for the story, but
But Cole, your first point is about Easter eggs, and I guarantee there are some Easter eggs in there that have no bearing on the hunt, whether they're intentional misdirection or they're just like fun things, like a couple of friends put an inside joke or lyrics from a song that they like, or make a reference to something that is completely orthogonal to the puzzle. But the notes here really show, to me at least, that the immigration is sort of the central importance of
the pivotal point,
like what everything got built off of.
Yeah.
This is the awkward silence moment. Tell someone else.
We're all thinking about it. The notes. I guess it's really just that one note, really, the one that, like, the discussion on the casks and stuff.
Yeah, I really only paid attention to those last two pages. The ones about whether the fair folk in the back of the book are male or female, kind of either like the importance of that either went over my head or it didn't like click with me.
I think talking to Joellen, I don't think she was given the actual fair folk guide when she was making them. And I was going over the male and female pairing, and most of those, like, they wouldn't fit the description if they were male, or they wouldn't fit the description if they were female. So in order to fit the description with the book, they had to be this gender, right? So I think
right.
While it's interesting to get that page, I really do think it's just directions for someone who hasn't seen the description of a sculpture she's making. She at least has to know the basics. Make this one a guy.
Yeah, good point.
Though when you get down to the details, where the Toronto ogre or whatever needing a beaver mask instead of whatever kind of mask it was. Though I guess that fits for Canada, right? Like if they want to make it a Canadian, isn't like beavers important to you guys?
Yeah. You ever had a beaver tail?
I want to make a joke.
It's like a funnel cake kind of.
No,
it's flat and they make it. It's basically a funnel cake, but they call it a beaver tail.
I gotta go to Canada. Like, you guys got some weird shit up there. Me and Rachel were talking about going to Montreal next year.
Oh yeah, I mean it's still snowing. It's basically April, and it snowed today. So May, June, July, August, September, those are your months. That's your time frame.
All right. Okay.
But the most interesting thing that stood out to me, and I don't know what this means, and maybe you'll have some insight, but Scandinavia got key only.
Yeah. That's weird.
The Lowlands got key only crossed out.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's ever like postulated the 13th cask, it might not be a cask. It could be a key. It could be a key somewhere with no cask. But damned if that doesn't.
Do we know if all the keys look the same?
All the keys are exactly the same.
They are the same. Yeah.
They're painted different colors, but they're exactly the same.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think they're painted the same color as the bottom of their lid or something. I don't remember.
I don't know if we know the code behind it. Like, I think Chicago's was blue or green, one of those two. I can't remember. And Cleveland's was orange, and Boston's was red. And it was just like the whole damn thing was painted that color. I mean, the key portion was silver.
I thought it was just the jacket of the gnome or something, wasn't it? The red one. I remember, for some reason I want to say it was just his hair was like gold and then his jacket was red, but I don't know if.
So the one for the tribute, they painted like that. Brian's looks like when you look at it, because Brian's is really the only one we get a chance to see. Brian's, when you look at it, it looks like it's all orange. It looks like it's all the same color, but it's hard to really tell. The red one, the Expedition Unknown one, I think it like start up some controversy, but it looks like they repainted the whole damn thing for the episode. So who knows?
You shouldn't say that, because all those people that think it was fake, you're gonna just be like, oh, they made that up.
I just referenced the 13th cask, so I'm just I got the fake bucket too.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
I mean, I can say that right now because we're gonna fix the fake shit really like soon. That's not gonna be an issue anymore. But yeah. So I got curious about this. Let me ask you this question first. Here's another polarizing question. Did this change your thoughts about the back of the book at all? This also with the interview, the Ben and Joellen interview. Because like I think, Chris, even you and I have thought for a while that even like art probably had clues. I think you guys wrote a blog post. I think Phoenix wrote a blog post about like descriptions for the photographs and descriptions for the art or whatever. The little footnotes might contain clues. Did this change any of that for you at all?
I don't know. I still just remain undecided until there's something that's like super concrete or objective. Like I'm very open to the ideas of the back of the book, and I don't want to shut. If it plays within the like boundaries and the structure of the puzzle, I'm interested to hear about it. If it's like way off, if it's using things outside of the system and bringing it in, that's when I kind of turn my face away. But I say this solidified the front of the book for me. Like so much of that text in that first section is reiterated in these notes. But the only thing that made me really reconsider the back of the book was like you made a comment, or someone made a comment that like JJP's original version had the back of the book first. And when he was talking about the front of the book having a code in it in that interview, maybe he was talking about the back of the book being the front of the book. I don't know. There's some stuff in there that needs to get unpacked a little bit. That would be the thing that would do it for me.
So it's good that you brought that up, because I was about to essentially talk about that. I asked, John likes to know sometimes, I'm trying to find this exact damn quote. John likes to know sometimes when secret shit pops up, right? Like if anything important happens, he likes to know. So I sent him a copy of these notes from Ben and Joellen, and I can't find the exact quote here, so I'm basically going to paraphrase, and then I'll find it later and post it. But I was like, hey, we're not exactly sure what this is. Like Joellen can't really remember exactly what this is. What is it? And his response was, holy fuck, number one, I can't believe she sent that to you. And number two, he was like, it basically looks like descriptions, exactly what we thought it was. It basically looks like descriptions for the cast. And I asked him if he ever got anything like that, and he said no, that him and Byron always worked kind of closely together, so he never really got notes. He said that the work that him and Byron did was kept very, very separate from the work everyone else was doing. And then I wanted him to clarify something else while we were talking about all this. So I asked, for the longest time, I've told the story about like, me and Bradley were sitting at dinner with John, and he said something about the back of the book having, like, if you take one part of one word, combine it with another part of another word, put it together, and you get a new word. I asked him if that was his opinion, because I felt like that comment put some people down a path that probably shouldn't have been put down. And he said it was. He said it was 100% his opinion. He said that. God, I'll have to find the quote, but it was basically Byron used to get pissed because John would bring up like leaving the back of the book out completely. Like the Fair Folk guy didn't have to. He kept trying to convince Byron we don't even need this portion, and Byron would get upset because he was contractually obligated to keep it in by Bantam in order for them to publish the book. So, just to clear up that whole one part of one word combined with another part of another word, there's the fuller story of that, with a little bit of added, this doesn't even have to be here, but we're contractually obligated to keep it. I gotta find that full quote though. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, that's still tough.
Oh,
Someone is
shit.
that.
Here it is.
No, go ahead.
It's the full quote was, Byron always seemed a little pissed off and adamant when I would mention if we even needed the modern guide to the fair people. Bantam set that condition for the book to be published, and it may have frustrated him and his vision for the book. That's the full quote.
So how does that play into the whole, like, he's a book packager, he wanted to publish it or something like that?
You can't publish a book with 50 pages, right? Like if you were just going to take the front of the book, the poems and the paintings, and publish a paperback that size, like how many pages would it be? 40? Less? You can't publish a book like that. The book needs something.
You can. I mean, I don't think Masquerade was more than.
But Masquerade was a different book. It was put out as like an art book. I guess if The Secret were to have been put out like an art book with, or packaged like a children's book, but then you completely change the audience. Like once you put that out, I don't know. But apparently they were contractually obligated to keep it in.
Interesting. I mean, that doesn't mean they wouldn't want to make the most of what they're contractually obligated to.
Yeah, I don't disagree. At all. Like I've always been of the opinion like Byron could have added shit, right? Like if he's working this close with John, there's no reason to think he didn't work this close with Sean and Ted, right? And them adding little things that he requested, or even those descriptions or whatever. But it wouldn't. I don't know that it would go if you did that. I don't know if it would go much deeper than like surface level stuff.
So you're saying we need the notes from.
We need the notes from Sean and Ted.
Gerard and Overton Lloyd, because if there are clues in the back of the book, that are in the drawings, like the 982 train, I would have to see those notes.
That's what's always been weird to me, and I wonder if stuff like that's in because like John just put it in. Like he's painting the Houston painting. He's got all these reference photos, and one of them is a 982 train, and he just sort of throws it in. I don't know. That's a question for him, I guess. Who knows? But yeah, I'd like to see those notes.
Yeah,
I have a feeling. I've got those two sketches, the Chicago sketches, and I have a feeling they're both ripped at the bottom, and I have a feeling that's what was there, just like little notes.
The good notes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some that like Sullivan patch thing on that Chicago one definitely like sent me in a spiral.
Yeah. And what's the other? It says like Lou Anderson. There's all kinds of shit going on there.
But I mean that just shows the depth of what they were looking into is so much greater than the like surface level image matching that the majority of stuff that I see come by is doing.
Yeah.
It's like there are some people that go super deep in their posts, and they're pulling in like such like esoteric references, but it's extremely possible that they were, as long as they're doing it, I think, within the boundaries of what's set from the puzzle. And like if you can find the like right thread, eventually you're gonna hit it.
Yeah.
It might not be this, it might not be that, but I don't think these are surface level, other than maybe, I mean, I think the ones that got solved were found, but not solved necessarily, if that's like a strange distinction to make. I mean, having it in your hands is the most like objective end to this that we have, but at the same time there's still so many loose ends, like even, I guess even going back to the Chicago immigration, like,
I mean, I'd go so far as to say that the found ones now, we're not really any closer to solving them than they were when they were found, right? Like, we don't know much more about the Chicago puzzle than the guys who found Chicago know. So, and you may be right.
The Japanese hints was the only change.
And you may be right. There may be like a warm middle, because I do see like two different sets of searchers. The one who are like, we've got these great image matches, and then we've got a verse, and we've had the same path or solution for the past 20 years, and that's the right one, but we need to narrow down the inch or whatever. And then there's the people who are like, one time George Washington went to a store in Peoria and they bought Coke, and that means it's in Atlanta or whatever. And there might be like there's got to be a warm middle in there somewhere where, yes, we have all of this stuff. Yes, we have other clues, but they can't, right? Like, they can't go too far out. There's got to be a warm middle that we as searchers can find. The problem with that being is we don't have any rules for this hunt. We don't have, even though we've gotten a couple of little hints, they're not hints that help you define how the puzzle works. You know, they're like the Lions, they're like Milwaukee or whatever, you know?
No, you're right in the sense that it doesn't give us the method in which to solve them, but this stuff is starting to build more of a interconnected system of stuff to work with. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to express it clearly.
I get it. But if we were to take all of this stuff that we're finding and we were to hand it to 20 different hunters, they would come up with 20 different ways to use it, going in 20 different directions, right? And it's that,
would one of those 20 be correct?
Maybe. But wouldn't it be more helpful if we could have some sort of direction that we could give all 20 hunters and be like, at least go this way? You know? I feel like that's what most hunts have that this one doesn't have, right? They at least have, you start here and go that way.
Well, in this one too, like, it's like, it seems like you can almost invent. It's like, let's picture this puzzle as being like, there's a table in front of you and you have a box full of things, and those things are things like the immigration references, the stories, the back of the book, the stuff that Ben Asen talks about, the Joel and Trilling notes, and we have them in this box and we just dump them on the table, right? Like, remember that scene on Apollo 13 where they had to get a box of stuff and they were like, we need to find a way to make that round or that square peg fit in that round hole so that these guys can survive. That's kind of what we're doing right now. And so we have all these little things that we've thrown out onto the table, and we're trying to pick them together. And yes, if you try hard enough, you will make a connection between any of these things, right? Yeah. And that's where that middle ground is lacking, right? Is in the fact that as soon as somebody can make some kind of connection with any of these things, they run with it so far that you know, like, it's no longer impossible to, or it's no longer possible to disprove it, right? Like, you know, and so we just need to find, like, we need to figure out what it is that's noise and what it is that's actual, like, stuff that works in the puzzle, right? So we know there's the immigration references, we know there's the month things, we know there's the flowers and all that kind of stuff, right? Keep those things on the table and get rid of the noise, you know?
You made me picture like a jigsaw puzzle, but all the pieces fit together and you don't know which fit together correctly until the end when you see the image that you're expecting, like the completed puzzle they're expecting, which would be actually digging up a casket.
Yeah, but in the case of The Secret too, like, there's still pieces left over, right? Like you say, we don't know everything with Chicago. We don't know everything. Like, there's what was the last two lines of the Chicago verse, the brush and hush or whatever, and we've never had a definitive this is what that means, right? Like,
yes, I will give you one right now. The Japanese hint is a wordplay. It says, BP only said one thing, place after quiet. So if you take the word quiet and put the word place after it, you get the sentence quiet place. And where do you say hush in a quiet place? You're in a library.
All right, that's fair.
It's a library.
We'll ask JJP about that.
But
I think you're right, but
so brush music hush is the library.
No, brush is the art museum. Music is
gotcha.
the symphony orchestra.
Yeah, I understand now. Yes. Okay.
There was like they were all there. The library was
they're all right there.
Block north, I think, but
I understand.
But we're going all the way back, top of the thread. You said that we have no method, and you're right. But what we do have, and it might even be that they assumed that this would be easy for us to put together, but these things have to have a start and they have to have an end. They just the nature of what they are. You have to be able to find your starting place and your ending place, and that is those are like the starting place is something I spend a lot of time looking for, and you know, no lie, I've found 100 different starting places in San Francisco, and it's not my, ideas are always changing, but at the end of the day, eventually you're gonna find the starting place. What's tricky, and especially with Boston, is like I still don't know what the start of Boston technically is, and that's the stuff. There has to be one, whether it's in the image or it's in the verse, like, and that's what makes it even more tricky, right? So like with Montreal, so Cole, you're a Montreal guy, like the pointing fingers on the blocks, like pointing on the blocks and pointing at the leg eater, like that's a really good way of saying, hey, this is where you start, as much as it is saying, hey, this is where you end.
But is it, like, the question with that one is, and I'm hoping it's the way that I think it is, but is the hand telling you to start at the leg eater, or is it telling you to end there, right?
Exactly. But
it would almost have to tell you to start there. Like, what's the point if it's already got a confirmation when you get to the end? What's two? Two's not going to help you. The leg eater helps you with an ending more than the pointing would. That would have to be a start, wouldn't it?
Well, not necessarily.
That's the thing. We don't. That's your point. Is like, even within these boundaries, if we need a start and an end, we still can't, like. So we can find a way that both of those are super reasonable.
Yeah.
And that's the trick.
Here's my thought. I say we, but people worked this puzzle basically the same way for almost 40 years, right? Perhaps the start isn't in the verse and it isn't in the painting, but it's like what you guys were doing with the front of the book. Perhaps that's how you start, and maybe not exactly how you guys did it, but like that formula, if we could find it to be concrete and provable across all of the hunts, that would be a good way to at least give you a start in this general area kind of thing, right? And it completely, like, you don't even need the painting and the verse for either of it. It's just, you know where to start because front of the book tells you where to start.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of ways, what we were doing was like letting the image, like painting, tell us where to start by like extracting information from the painting to either give like an area, like the Golden Square Mile is like represented in that painting, you know, or what's
Golden Gate
another
Park,
one?
or like I think that's how Icon to Path started. I think that was the process. Like we always thought like there's these things we see in the image, like City Hall in Milwaukee. That's got to be where you start, and somehow you have to get from this to the other place. But I think that was the progression of our work in the puzzle. I don't think it was correct, but you know, that was the progression.
But it's also, yeah, and that's also not, it's not unreasonable. Like that would be a very reasonable way to start. The only thing is it wasn't specific enough, or that's not the right word, because it was very specific. It's like, go to this place, but it was like, it wasn't tied to the puzzle enough.
Yeah.
You know, like what did the water tower have to do, or what did the city hall have to do, without the additional context of, well, city hall's by the river and they're talking about Rhine Maidens, so maybe this is like a thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna try to find some comments. I'm curious that like this is just the last comment that came through, so I'm kind of curious what you guys think. Would it be worth money to be part of the recovery of a cask?
Worth money?
What does that mean?
I don't know. I
like
feel
like buy tickets, like,
well,
yeah,
you know how everybody's like, everybody thinks that they're gonna
my cask.
Everybody thinks they're gonna find a cask and then get famous, or they're all like, if I find a cask, I'm gonna donate it to the local art museum. Like they're gonna care. I think the only people that are gonna care are the people that are in this chat.
I mean, there's probably 50% of the 11,000 people in the Facebook group would be so stoked.
Yeah.
For anyone who finds a cask, they're gonna just love it. But there's no, I don't think there's, I mean, you're not gonna get on 60 Minutes and talk about, you know, your cask.
You could maybe call James Renner.
So one of the other questions I marked was, how many pages on the front of the book did we agree on that Byron was directly involved in writing?
At least the litany.
Well,
I think he wrote that.
I mean, like I've read some of Byron's other work, and the vast majority of the front of the book sort of sounds like him. It doesn't read the way the back of the book reads. Like the back of the book is confusing and bad, and you can tell it's like a long form National Lampoon article or whatever, right? And the front of the book doesn't read that way. It reads more of a structured sci-fi fantasy style. It reads like Byron's style. So like, while I don't know that he works on it, like the whole thing by himself, it seems like it.
Well, like, and I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't directly write a lot of that stuff. Obviously, he'd have like a ghostwriter, sort of somebody that he could dictate to. So if the question is how much did he have a hand in the writing of the front of the book, 100%. How much of it was it him directly writing it out? Who knows, right?
Based on how many spelling mistakes are in his notes and how many typos are in the front of the book, I'm going to say it was the same person.
I know he didn't have any input on the borders, right? Like the only thing that I know 100% about the front of the book was he didn't have any input in the border art, right? Like he didn't put that together. It was like John Perard drew some stuff, John Palancar drew some stuff, and then Alex J cut it up and made a border. So like he may have had something to do with the individual pieces of art, but he didn't have any say in where they went. That's the only thing any of us really know for certain about the front of the book, I think.
Does that count for the litany icon as well? Because that one's always been,
I don't know.
That one's on a few of the pages, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's next to every verse, and it's only on the pages of the litany.
Right.
I don't know. And the only reason that I know this was because when we were at that dinner with Bradley and John, he was flipping through the book and going, oh, this is mine, and oh, this is John Perard's, and it was like two pieces of art that were right here. And like, you guys drew together? He's like, no, Alex J just cut up all of our shit and made it into a border.
Well, those are the notes I want to see.
Yeah,
Alex
right.
J's notes.
Do Do you think that the notes are hurting? Do you think all this kind of like this stuff coming out is hurting the hunt? I know this is probably another.
Anytime something comes out that like is sort of new idea, like new information, I mean, I think it always has the potential to do something positive, but thus far it seems to either do nothing at all really in the sense of, you know, moving the hunt forward, short of maybe the gift giver's nudge thingy, things like that. But like, again, I go back to the idea of Kitsch. Like, I don't think it's, you know, I don't think this stuff is important enough to help us find a cask. It's really rad to know it, and it was cool to hear. Like, what was interesting to me about that interview with Joelle, and especially about those notes, is that, like, I wonder if we believe 100% of what she was saying about, you know, not necessarily knowing how to translate those notes and stuff like that, like the things Byron wrote down and stuff like that. I wonder if she knows a little more than that. But that's an example of how new information that's presented can turn bad, right? Because I just literally questioned her credibility, you know, in open air, and it just given the information that we have, right? And that doesn't help anything, right?
I mean, Joellen's in her 70s, you know, and like I believe her when because she's always been very steadfast on this was just a job and I don't care, right? So when she says I don't remember stuff, I believe that, because she didn't care then. It had no impact on her life for 40 years almost, and then it just popped back up, and we're expecting her to remember stuff she hasn't cared about in forever.
Yeah.
I mean, she cared so little that she didn't keep any of the dolls. She kept one of the dolls, you know?
Yeah.
Like
she decapitated them.
Yeah, that was funny.
That comment.
Yeah. But like she didn't care. And Ben didn't care. Ben took his photos, Joellen did her dolls, and that was it. In all honesty, it seems like John Palancar didn't care. Like, it was a job, he did it, it was over, and he never didn't think about it until he was forced to.
Well, and Kit himself said that his dad doesn't like those paintings.
Yeah, he doesn't like the paintings.
He doesn't even like the paintings, so
like, I think
still a baby when he made those paintings. Yeah. Like, that's how you grow as an artist.
Objectively,
you have to hate it.
Like, they're awesome paintings, but compared to his stuff now, they're not his best work. Like, I can see that. I don't know.
I got a weird question. Have you guys ever wondered why they printed the pages, like the images in the book, back to back?
Because they're color, they're on different paper, they're glossy.
Well, but like, why each page didn't get, or each image didn't just get one side of a page? You know what I mean? Like, I refer to that Kane's Jawbone a lot, and the whole book is written on one side of each page, right? And so, like, I wonder if has that ever come up in conversation about, like, because you notice how, like, I don't know, I don't even know if it would even mean anything necessarily were it the other way, but the fact that they are printed one behind the other the way they are, like, that's, I don't know.
Well, if we take context clues from Ben, like, he took all of his photos in color, but they didn't have enough money to print them in color, and they're all printed on this sort of crappy regular book paper, but those paintings had to be in color, and they're printed on a completely different kind of piece of paper, and like, that's going to be, I don't know how much it would cost, but it's got to be more expensive to print two parts of a book and then put it all together. You know what I'm saying? It would probably cost more to print extra. I don't know. I'm just spitballing.
I don't know.
But yeah, everybody in the comments tends to agree. Cut cost on color printing.
Cut cost.
I think it's to cover up the layers.
Let's see, another comment. JJP said Houston painting was the hardest because Byron wanted it very precisely done. That's true. He didn't say it was the hardest. He said he hated it. He didn't like it.
Because why?
Because it needed to be precise.
Oh.
So, who knows? Anyway.
All right, so I got a question about the notes.
Okay.
What's interesting about the Greece one is he describes the Greek phase, gazing around in wonder and surprise at unfamiliar landscape, Spanish moss and magnolias, say, ... So that's interesting. Magnolia is like is it a star flower? Is it often, does it come in that like star shape?
I don't know.
Is it part of the aster family? Like, is there, I guess what I'm trying to get at is there a reference here? Why would the Greek phase be gazing at Spanish moss? Is there a reference there to some sort of next connection? I don't know. I don't know how.
Well, I mean, on the surface, that just sounds like a garden, right? Like he discusses a bunch of flowers, right? The Greek puzzle led to a cultural garden, right?
Yeah, but why Spanish? Why not just moss? Why Spanish moss?
That's a good point, especially like in connection to Greek.
Yeah. So, but they're looking at unfamiliar landscape. So I don't know.
I mean,
that's weird.
Thinker.
I don't know.
It couldn't be a month thing because September doesn't come after March, so that's okay. But
I just like I read these and I can't see them as descriptions of, number one, what's on the cask, or number two, how he expected this to be made. If this was just like, I want you to, sculpt a centaur looking at some Spanish moss on the side of this cask right next to this guy who's smoking a pipe, and like,
yeah. And she's like, sure.
I'm wondering, like, is it descriptions of what he wanted on the cask, or is it like descriptions that would put her head in a specific headspace?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I know.
I don't know, but either way, the Spanish moss is interesting, unless it's just setting a scene. Because, like, have you ever seen Spanish moss?
No.
Like, it's everywhere in Florida. Trees are covered in it. And it
sets what a surprise. There's a Spanish thing in Florida.
It's not Spanish, and it's not a moss. I don't know why we call it Spanish moss. But yeah, it's like everywhere. And most of the South has Spanish moss. It covers trees and just hangs. I'll send you a picture.
I'm on Wiki. I'm
okay.
Looking it up. Interesting. The other one like that caught my attention was which one was it? Oh, in the lowlands, he referred to them as bourgeois, which is something that you would just, if someone just said bourgeoisie to you, you're gonna think Russia and not the Netherlands.
Yeah. But bourgeoisie is a term that was used a lot in the 80s to describe a very specific social level of a person. What is my dog?
Didn't Madonna do a song with that in 2000? She had that song about the bourgeoisie and the rebels.
I mean, the Migos did Bad and Bougie. I don't know if that counts.
I love that word, bougie.
It's funny how language changes over time.
Let's see. I'm trying to see notes. Oh, we're supposed to do a giveaway today. So I don't know, Chris, I don't know if you're aware. We're supposed to do a giveaway of a print from John Palancar.
Cool. Listening to him talk, and then I see him.
Well, let's listen to Cole's wife for a second. Can we, with your permission, can we take me and Cole out of this equation, and Chris at some point just go and read through the comments, and whatever, like if you think there's a good comment, something that sparks your interest or might spark a decent conversation, pick a person and let me know.
With great power comes great responsibility. I have to do it blindfolded, and I'm going to have to write some code to generate a random number.
Would it be better if I just put everybody's name in a random number generator and pick that way? I'll do that. I'll do that. Okay. I just like, I don't want people to be like, George just gives stuff to his friends, because everybody's my friend. I don't know. Or Cole, do you want to pick? Do you want this to be your first giveaway from the podcast? You could just pick a person?
Yeah, I'll do it right now.
Okay.
Okay, I'll flick it up.
Then everybody else is just going to leave because they didn't win.
Yeah.
That's right.
Most people are saying do it random, or to let kids pick.
I'm going to be pretty random. I think that Mark Bugby wins.
Okay.
Mark
Alright.
Bugby.
I actually know him.
Do you?
Yeah, he lives like not too far from here, so like I
Can I not pick him or what? Like,
I don't. It's up to you. Yeah, I'm. Yeah.
Rigged.
Thanks for. Anyway,
Kill, fine. Somebody else pick somebody.
you know what? I think I got two.
Dice
I'll
cast.
I'll do. Yeah, no, that dice cast. I'll do a random number generator thing and give something else to somebody. I got more shit up there. I think I got a couple of signed prints. Anyway, Cole just picks somebody and he just leaves.
No, I'm still here. We're just eating dinner.
Oh,
Dinner.
Let's-
It's 9 o'clock. Oh, what? No, he's in a different time zone than I am.
yeah, that's like 8 for him, right?
Oh, okay.
It's just
Yeah, it's
That's
still,
7.
still pretty late. 7. Oh, 7. 2 hours. Okay.
so.
All right.
What? So Chris, there are 3 pages at the end, which is just descriptions of back of the book characters for Joe Ellen. What did that bring anything to you?
I found that one really hard to read. It was like when I tried to zoom in, it was pretty.
So somebody got a better picture, and I put it on 12 Treasures.
Okay.
If you go to the American edition link on 12 Treasures, it's a much better version. You can actually read this one.
Okay. Great. That's because I was very curious on the like notes in the margin.
That's still very difficult to understand. I still don't know what that says. Like something like spells Hervlathana with whatever is don't for filing. I don't know. I have no idea. But it seems to me like when I was reading them, she didn't seem to use any of them. Or really any of them. Like Toronto Ogre, she used women who look like real estate agents.
Yeah, I mean, like I think this is like the most kitschy of all of it, at least. Just sort of describing them. And
But
I'm sort of
it's-
just like skimming through it live.
It's vague too, though, right? Like
Yeah.
Calcubus talks about algebra symbols, but not specific symbols. But the word symbols
Yeah.
is underlined, like that's supposed to matter. The symbols portion.
So I mean, here's underlines in these days were used for book titles. Remember? You ever remember writing essays in school by hand with like a pen?
I don't know if you know this, but I went to like a church school. We didn't
Okay.
we read the Bible, and that's about it.
Okay.
So
So sometimes
underlines
when I
are
see this stuff,
underlines are used for
underlines
titles.
yeah, you would underline before. Now you put it in quotes.
Yeah.
But back in the day, you would underline titles, but it does not appear that is what's going on here. But I did that is something I keep in mind when I'm like reading, because the underline's on.
Well, it's weird
So-
because the previous page, like the last word is perched on stocks, and stocks is in quotes.
Interesting. I mean, it is a way to emphasize something that's important as well.
Winter
Beaver.
is in quotes. Beaver is underlined. On lunch pail. On underline an assembly line.
Yeah. So on an assembly line as opposed to next to an assembly line, or under
Or as
an
opposed to like a
assembly line.
part of an assembly line.
Yeah. So what would be worth emphasizing about being on an assembly line? If anything, those would be the questions to like ask.
Yeah.
I absolutely no thoughts on it.
Mm-mm.
Being on an assembly line implies that you work on it, does it not?
Or that you are part of the product.
What's being put together? Yeah.
Yeah. But by and large, like the stuff doesn't seem to be used. So I mean, I kind of would agree. It's
Yeah.
kitschy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like, if I'm being honest, I don't think these are important as important as we first thought. Except that key only.
Yeah, that stuff is interesting.
I mean, like, the notes from the first page, who's assigned what field guide character or field guide character, like Gardengoyle has Florida next to it, Unreal Estate Broker has Florida next to it, which for a while I kind of thought, like, they used to talk about how field guide characters were supposed to represent a state or whatever, but then I just realized, no, these were the photos that were taken in Florida.
Well,
So,
there's
is
one
that-
on the first page called Newfie Screech. Is that actually in the book? I don't remember.
No,
seeing
there's
that.
a couple of them that aren't in the book. Like,
Have you ever drank Newfie Screech?
No. what is
Yes,
it?
Yeah,
I have been
it's a
screeched in before. It's fun.
it's a rum that they drink in Newfoundland, and it's a time. It's not. So there's like Everclear, and then there's Newfie Screech, and then there's all other alcohol.
quite strong.
Oh, Troy Tossi just mentioned something. It said, or no, I'm sorry, Robert Bryan. I didn't notice. Under John Perard, it says maps and silhouettes. So I guess now we know who drew the map.
In what context? Like, oh, the page
map,
10,
yeah.
11 map.
Yeah. I didn't even notice that. But yeah, like you were saying, there's a bunch of these that are not actually in there, like Newfie Screech, Many-Headed Hydra. What was the
Well,
other
and they even
ones?
spelled silhouettes wrong under that John Perard part. There's a typo. There's no L's. in silhouette.
Yeah, his typing skills were not top notch, or he had a
Silhouettes.
typographical terror on his shoulder while he was
Yeah,
doing
maybe there's a
it.
typographical terror kicking.
I would really like to see what a common Yahoo is.
Maybe he was like predicting Yahoo, the search engine.
Yeah. Hey, if anyone was gonna like predict the next round of technology, I think it might have been him.
Yeah.
He seemed to be at the forefront of a lot of stuff and didn't get a ton of recognition for it over time.
I mean, the man who owned iBooks in the 90s.
Yeah, right. Like, it was like doing video games and stuff. Like,
Those are
some of the
kind
stories
fun,
that
too.
I've heard, like that is cool shit.
Yeah.
Hey, so have you guys, like, it says in the next to Necromancer, John Held Jr. reference. Who is that?
I don't know. Let's find out.
Is that HELD?
It looks like a D.
LOL?
John Hell Jr. is an American cartoonist. Oh, okay. Now, once you go and look at his work, you will know exactly who it is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, buddy.
I think when I read that, I overlooked it just thinking it was like going to say something about John Jude Palancar reference or something. So I just completely overlooked the John Hell Jr. Paper Money Green's shoes.
Road map, towel, or real estate newspaper ads. So was that guy like a political cartoonist?
It looks like he did stuff for Vanity Fair.
Yeah, and this is all like in the 20s.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
But I mean, that's another person. So okay, so here let's take this then. So many of the quotes of people in the secret, whether explicit or implicit, have all been this like 19th century. I guess this is 20th century, but he was born in 1889, which is what got me thinking about it. There seems to very much be a time frame that either he was interested in or that they used for whatever reason.
I mean, could that be
Yeah,
a
just if
product
you-
of his time, though? Because, like, we look back at, like, the 50s or whatever as, I don't know, nostalgically, right? Even though we weren't a part of the 50s. But in
But
the
this
80s,
would have
could
been
they
like
have looked-
looking back like 150 years, like to the part of it's to the romantics, right? Like
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Twain,
Yeah.
Lincoln, Grant, were, you know, all these people like are in the 1800s, like you know, Baum, the Wright brothers are, you know, sort of in the towards the 20th century of that. But like if you take all the references that we think are in there, many of them fall into this sort of like 1850 to 1950 bucket.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I've never been able to for it to be anything more than a fun fact, but or maybe shows like when was it? Ben Asen, something Ben Asen said, Byron really loved the Civil War. It's like that time period.
Yeah.
You know.
And then he wouldn't elaborate on that.
Yeah. Well, we know if he was doing Grant and Lincoln, we know that there's some truth there.
Yeah.
But
Grant, Lincoln, Ironsides, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But how much of that is like, maybe I don't even want to bring that point up because it takes away. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I devil's advocate everything. Like, how much of it is just...
As you should.
It's what we have. Like, it's what we have to work with. It's what's common around that we have to work with. You know?
It's very possible. It's just, for the amount of it, it just seems curious. But also, like, yeah, there's context that I don't have. Like, is that what you learn in school? Because...
Yeah.
You know, because it's different for me. We don't learn that stuff in school.
Yeah.
In the same way that you do. So it's like if that's the time frame that was part of the education system of his upbringing, and is that, you know, is he imparting that back into, or is he expecting people to know it? Melville, Stevenson, Twain, like he's like, this is the stuff you learned in school.
Those are
Everyone's
100% the things we learned in school. Right. 100%.
So like if I had to guess, that would be my guess, right? It's like you put in things that you think people will know, you make it a little bit hard so they can't find it, but then you don't think it's going to be 40 years removed from when you did it. And like what people learn in school now is, you know, maybe they're probably learning about the 80s, and not at the 1880s. You know, they're learning about the 1980s now.
Yeah.
This is why I really wish we had boundaries, because of the things we just don't know, that we would be able to dismiss some of this, like the people, some people who are like, Byron really liked the Civil War, and there's a lot of Civil War references in a lot of these paintings, therefore this puzzle's based around the Civil War, right? Well, that's not really the case. Like, there's Civil War shit everywhere, right? Like, there's Civil War shit in St. Augustine. There's Civil War shit in Charleston. You can't throw a baseball without hitting some Civil War shit. That's just the way sort of the South is. That doesn't necessarily make it important to the puzzle. I don't know. I wish there were boundaries.
Well, at least we know that, like, one of the boundaries is don't look at it in the context of today, right? Yeah. Like, you can't...
That's true. That is one definite boundary.
Because, like, so many people want it to seem like, you know, I don't know. There was a time when the Confederate flag thing was getting thrown around a lot, and, like, you know, actually, I'll give you a really neat example of this backfiring in a sense. So somebody made a pretty legit theory one time a while back that included the use of the Confederate flag, and at the time, this is like right around when George Floyd was killed and that kind of stuff, right? So NASCAR's banning the flag from being at their racetracks, things like that are happening, and like I chewed the guy out in a comment section, and later on, like I actually went through and read his theory, and he told me about his justification for this kind of stuff, and he even I'm pretty sure he even said to me, like, don't think of it in the context of now, because that's what made me mad, was thinking about it in the context of now. But like in 1981, you know, that wasn't a thing, right?
Confederate flag was still super racist. We just didn't care as much.
Well, exactly, and that's
But these notes imply that Byron did care.
Yeah. I mean, they really, like, the entire book implies that Byron really cares about social injustices.
Well, look at
From
the
the dedication on.
Yeah, about the Russians and stuff. Yeah,
but like under Africa, he wrote, "Here's our chance to make up for centuries of oppression." I mean, right? This tiny little book probably not going to do much, but the fact that he was thinking about it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he was.
Someone asked, "Is Civil War shit accepted terminology in the search for the casts?" Yes, by all means, Civil War shit. I don't know.
No, you said Civil War ship, right?
No,
Civil
I
War
said
ship.
Oh yes, for the Google or for the YouTube algorithm, I said ship with a P.
It was Ironsides all along.
Those Ironsides. Jesus. So really, like, the entire point of this is we don't know anything, and the notes have shown us that we don't know anything, and we'll never know anything. Basically.
No, the notes show us a few things that we know now know, and that was that the field guide, the original field guide, was used. We don't know if that matters, but we know that it was used to fuel the content of the book.
Yeah.
No one can dispute that now.
Joe Ellen once said, like, in I think it was in the first podcast episode, and I don't remember if John Michaels cut it out. And I think I put it in the second one just in case he did. She once said that when Byron asked her to do this, she was given packets of information. And back then we didn't know what those packets of information were. Now, obviously, we see what they are. But she said that included in those packets of information were descriptions of mythical characters, and she couldn't remember, like, what, she just remembered there were mythical characters. And I'm wondering if she got, like, photocopies of this book. I actually bought a copy of the book and sent it to her house to see if it would, like, jog her memory, but she hasn't said anything about it.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
But but like anything that's in here that is like a specific reference. What's interesting is when he references Wagner, he references Rockham's Wagner, which is like a guy that drew pictures for The Ring. Disney and the Disney dwarfs, you know, field guide, Kay Nielsen Snow Queen. There's like the Italian immigrant Hester Street era photo of the family. There are things in here that we can now say that we know. What's unfortunate is they don't help us know anything about the solutions, but they help us better understand the influences of the puzzle and like what he was referencing and whether or not you can turn that into, so like under England he references Shakespeare. Sure, does that mean the Elizabethan gardens are important? Don't know, but
okay, okay. I was wondering, like, Elizabethan Gardens, Shakespeare, Queen Elizabeth. And then I caught up.
It's time frame. It's the same.
Yeah.
But
I think it conversations like this are important because someone would look at that and automatically think like Shakespeare's garden in San Francisco and be like, oh, this is a nod to that, and everybody's wrong. I don't know.
I'm sure we'll see some of that, but
let's see. I'm trying to go through comments.
Well, a lot of like the way we interpret these notes too is interesting. Like it's so Rip Van Winkle is like, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's kind of an American icon, correct?
Rip Van
He's
Winkle?
at the end. Yeah,
he's not an icon, but everybody knows the sort of legend.
The story.
Yeah. And he's the guy that's in the boat at the end of the Jackass movie, right? Where he's got the flags and stuff.
That is Rip Taylor. That is
Okay.
completely
That's
different thing.
That's my
Rip Van
Canadian.
Winkle's the guy that like fell asleep for 40 years or something.
Yeah.
Rip Taylor is a god in my country.
I was gonna say, like, you've got two Canadians here trying to talk about like all this American
Yeah.
stuff. Like,
Rip
I
Van
didn't-
Winkle like sat under. I don't remember the whole story, but Rip Van Winkle sat under a tree and slept for 40 years, and then woke up. That's Rip Van Winkle.
Kind of like The Secret.
Yeah, kind of like The Secret. Here was a good question. Where is it? I think Byron is pointing out racial discrimination in a few cities. I'll know for sure if we can dig up some casks. So here's a question I want to ask Chris very specifically. Do you think Byron is pointing out anything in any of these cities? Do you think that any of these puzzles are supposed to teach you a moral lesson or teach you about some sort of historical story?
so my personal opinion is no. I don't think that. I don't know. And this is where we open. Like, I hate these ad hominem arguments because I don't
But they're
truly.
fun. Yeah.
I don't know. If you
But
ask his
that's
kids,
why I said, do
they
you
probably think that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
For
But
me, I don't think so. He was a businessman. He wanted to put a puzzle together and sell a book, right? So,
Well-
like, I think education is an outcome,
yeah.
but like a byproduct. But I don't think it was the goal.
No, I think you misinterpreted the question. Maybe I didn't word it
Okay.
correctly. If when solving these puzzles, do you think that Byron's intention with the solution to one of them, not the book as a whole,
Okay.
like look, think about Chicago, right? Walking through the solution of Chicago, even though we may not know everything. So taking into consideration, we may not know the whole of the solution to Chicago. Do you think that his goal was to teach you something about, say, Chicago or about Grant Park or the history of Grant Park or whatever, you know? Or do you think it was go find a treasure?
Yeah, I think my statement is the same. Like, I don't think his intention was to teach you about Chicago. I think learning about Chicago is a byproduct of solving the puzzle. If that makes sense.
But it's
like,
not important. It's not important to the narrative of that specific puzzle.
I don't think so. But again, I don't
Maybe.
know what he would or wouldn't do.
Yeah.
It seems like, just going back to like Expedition Unknown or whatever, like his kids seem to imply that the immigration and like teaching people about immigration was an intention. His comment in the notes about whether then that's the thing, sarcasm completely lost, or like cheeky comments or whatever. But like, if he truly thought that something about this Africa puzzle was going to make up for centuries of oppression, maybe there is, but
I will say, like, and I think it goes back to, I think we were talking a long time ago about how we've brute forced our way into the end of this puzzle, right? And we've completely skipped the beginning.
Yeah.
And I feel like if there are lessons like this, we have skipped them. Because they don't seem necessary in the solved puzzle. Aside from maybe in Boston, you learn a little bit about Paul Revere. But like you were saying, his kids seem to think the immigration was important. John Palancar seems to think the immigration was important. Joellen seems to think these notes certainly say that the immigration is important, and we don't necessarily know why the immigration's there, right?
Yeah.
We don't have a
important to the puzzle, or was it important to him? And those are two.
It seems important to the
different things.
puzzle the way it's laid out.
I think, yeah, it does, given that being able to identify the Italian area of Boston gets you 80% of the way there. That tells me that the immigration was important to the puzzle, but it doesn't tell me that the immigration was important to him.
Yeah.
Or that he felt like there was some need to teach inherent in it, other than, I mean, there's a lot of anecdotal stuff from Ben Asen about Byron loves kids and he always had comic books and stuff. Like, I don't know.
Trying to figure
Stuff. He was
out.
what, 29? He was 29 when
Something like that.
When he did The Secret, like, I don't know.
Someone else
Me at
asked,
29 doesn't align to that.
Someone said there are also disasters in each of the 3 found cities that were caused by industry. So that's another thing that I think people get tripped up on is coincidence, right? There's disasters in every city that's caused by industry. I live in a town with 1,600 people. There was like a big ass farm disaster that killed farmhands. Like, it happens.
Yeah, you can find an important fire, earthquake, or hurricane in like every city on that coast.
Yeah, especially major cities. Now that I say that, I can't think of any industrial problems that St. Augustine or Roanoke would have had, though. That's where most of these coincidences fall flat. St. Augustine and Roanoke, because they're both tiny cities. They've got a wealth of history, but not the same kind of history as places like New York and Milwaukee and Chicago and Boston have.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, but you know what Roanoke has a lot of? Firsts.
Yeah. Roanoke's got a lot of firsts. So
Lots
does St.
of firsts.
Augustine. We have the first chapter. It's written in water.
Yeah. You have the first flight, the first colony. Well, I guess it's like the first
British colony. English colony.
British colony, first
European.
English colony, firstborn American.
Yeah. St. Augustine just has the first time we killed the Indians and said, this is new Spain land.
That's why you've got all that Spanish moss.
Plant my flag.
Yeah.
Reminds me of that Eddie Izzard joke. We're already here, but do you have a flag?
Where did they plant the flag?
All right. Is there anything else we want to talk about, or do we want to head out? Because we seem to be winding down. Was there something?
I have to stay muted because I have a crying child in the background. I don't
It's
want you guys
okay.
to.
They're cool kids.
They are cool kids.
Oh yeah.
We build the fort here. That's the comment. I don't know. Okay.
I mean, I'm down to.
You're down
spitball
to
as
talk.
long as
Yeah,
you
you're
want
down
me
to talk whenever.
I'm just always
I am too. I just don't want you guys to get bored. I feel like there's people in the comments. If anybody wants to come, like I didn't say it, and I said I would at the beginning of the stream. If anybody wants to come in and talk, just let me know and I'll send you a link. Because this was supposed to be for everybody, and then we just got started, and I forgot to say, hey, send me a message for a link.
Oh, then there you go. As good a time as ever. It's a slight lull in conversation. Let's get some new blood.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go through some of these comments. Hey Cole, be an interviewer and interview Chris while I go through the comments.
Starters.
All right. So, Chris, tell us a little about yourself.
What are your turn-ons, Chris?
Yeah. What is the heaviest thing you're listening to right now?
Oh, that's a good question.
Okay. Well, not the heaviest thing I'm listening to, but the thing I'm like most excited about right now. You heard of this band called Night?
Yep.
No.
It's like
That's great.
straight up heavy metal. Like it sounds like old Priest,
Nice.
Saxon.
Have you heard Slaughter to
Iron
Prevail?
Maiden, but no.
No, they're from Russia. I don't know if we should hold that against them necessarily, but they're a good heavy metal band. That's who I'm listening to lately.
I've been really into Dream Unending, which is half from
Wait,
Toronto.
can you show me that again? Ooh.
Like Peaceville era Doom.
I was about to ask where you get all of these records, and then I was like, oh yeah, you own the label.
You make them. Do you
Well,
like
these
Cynic?
ones- no, they're a little too like
Who?
Math metal-y?
for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
I gotta be in a mood to listen to them, but I do like
Yeah, right. I'm
I'll-
more.
There's one recommendation Chris gave me a while back that like hasn't stopped on Spotify for me, and they're Mehenet, and they're this like
Oh yeah.
weird metal band from New Orleans, but they mix like this voodoo sort of African weird Cajun style, and it's
cool.
insane. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
like
they
doing
seem really
they're
cool.
doing shows. They're doing shows now, and I was like, oh, I got to go to New Orleans to see them, but Racer won't let me.
Really?
Yeah, she won't let me travel to see. Like if I had a plan, like a purpose for going, other than I want to see this band in some rundown, dive bar, she'd probably let me go. But it's like I wanted to go see them in New Orleans, and then I wanted to go see Vulvodynia in. I think the closest they're coming is Atlanta. She's like, no, you can't drive 8 hours to go see a band.
That's like most of my life has been driving 8 hours to go see a band. Like I'm like, we've been talking about going to New Orleans here, and like if we're going to, you damn well know I'm going to try to find it around.
If you go to New Orleans, let me know, and I will make that trip. We will go see bands together.
Yeah,
Chris,
Somebody-
come to Alberta sometime. It sucks only a little bit here.
yeah.
The province is nice. It's the people that are the problem.
Here's a good secret question. Can you provide any insight on how a person gets to the cultural gardens within the first couple of lines of the verse? Matthew Wood asked because he said he could never figure that out. And then someone else said that we need to make a secret playlist on Spotify, which I might actually do that tonight.
Oh, that'd be
set it up to where just anybody can add shit to it.
I think the answer is no, because you need more than the first couple of lines of any verse to solve them, right?
No, not solve. Just get to the gardens.
Yeah, just get to
there.
it. It's a good question.
Between two countries where the road curves, like that's where it's questions like this that make me think that the verses can and maybe should be reordered sometimes, right? Because that information comes pretty early in the verse, but it's the last thing essentially, right?
Yeah, I don't want to don't call it reordered, but I think the information doesn't have to flow linearly from start to finish, and like in some of the newspaper quotes and stuff, when they say like where the verse leaves off, the painting may begin, like there's this sort of fluid motion between the two, and even in some ways that we may not have figured out, like using something from both in some way. So
well, and like some lines too, you like, as far as we can tell, some lines you can completely forget about, right? Like in hindsight, once you have
it's
solve figured out and stuff, like that's why it's
either
like,
or we didn't understand what it was actually meant for.
What it was meant for. No, absolutely.
That's another issue. But
I think like Jason Olson had a really good point once about talking about the back of the book, where until you solve a cask, until you find the cask, but you cannot apply the back of the book information in any way other than hindsight, right? Like you can say till you're blue in the face that there's clues back there, but until you've got a cask to show the connection, right? Like, so, let's say somebody finds a connection in the back to Boston or to Cleveland or Chicago. Well, yeah, of course you're going to be able to do that because that cask was found. Was that information necessary to get you there? In hindsight, you could say yes, but in like real life, real time, you can't say that, right?
So I don't know where this conversation went because I had to let my dog out of the room. But someone did make a comment. Terminal Tower is on Euclid Avenue that connects to Liberty Avenue, now MLK. The triangle within the square plus the call out of the rectangle in the verse suggests geometry. Like I could see how that would work, but that doesn't really get you there. That gets you to a really long road. Like I feel like people want a pinpoint when pinpoints just don't exist. Right? At least it doesn't seem like pinpoints exist. Like, how do you get to the cultural gardens? You know about it. It's Cleveland. You find it. I don't know.
But if Euclid Avenue connects to Liberty Avenue, and you've got, I think there's that at least puts you in a damn close vicinity.
Yeah, but you have to know.
Does that? Plus, as the road, you have to be looking on a map for that to even mean anything to you. does that get you to notice something like a curved road
Let me look for
on the
you.
map? Like, because that would, I mean, we'd need a like an 80s map, early 80s map, of course, but like whether or not that the curved road is represented at like what level of fidelity the map is that it's represented. But
It doesn't appear that Euclid Avenue is connected to Liberty.
okay.
Like, maybe now, because Euclid Avenue looks like a big ass highway now, but to get from maybe I don't know. I could see it maybe driving, like if you're on, but that's really like a triangle means Euclid. Like, how would you know that unless you already knew where you were looking?
Well, and who wouldn't think Pythagoras first?
You'd already Euclid's elements. Pythagoras was right angle triangle.
This is true. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just being
point.
big.
Good point.
But that you already had the Greek, right? If you did the litany and you matched the immigration and the like cultural element to the painting, and you connected to the verse, and you got Socrates, Pindar, Apelles, you've already if you don't by that point have this is the most Greek thing, this pairing of verse and painting is like screaming Greek at me. If you don't have that, then we're all in trouble, right?
But that's contrary to what. Go ahead.
Take
Sorry.
that and say, I'm thinking about the Greeks. Maybe you're researching the Greeks, and to then be able to say, okay, maybe you're looking at Euclid and Pythagoras. Because one thing that's interesting is Socrates was a philosopher, Pindar was a poet, Apelles was an artist, but what else are the Greeks known for? Mathematicians. So like to get it's there. It is.
Yeah.
That is.
But that's contrary to the way most people work this puzzle now, and it's 100% probably the podcast's fault. Most people work this puzzle as a step-by-step instruction, right? And what you're doing is using broad ideas to narrow something down, right? You're using broad ideas to give you a narrow area instead of going.
That's my MO.
1 to 2 to 3 to 4, right? Which is what most people do. Like you don't like most of the people who send me their theories. Brett was talking about it the other day. He gets like 40-page PDFs, and they're all crazy. And not all of them are crazy, but what I mean by that is they're all like super in depth into one specific thing, just trying to explain the importance of one single line, when that line may just be helping you get to a narrower area. You see what I'm saying? It might not be most people work it as a step-by-step process, and you're not. And it doesn't honestly seem like Cleveland was. I think that's how like people fall down that trap. It's a lot of the same reasons that people have problems with Boston. It's not a step-by-step thing. It's just a narrowing. You know? Chicago's completely different, though. That's a step-by-step thing. I think. IMO.
Right, but that's the thing. Is it's totally fine for Chicago to be completely different from Cleveland.
Yeah.
And it's totally fine for Cleveland to be completely different from Boston, because another thing that we don't know is whether these are like each pairing is a distinct and unique solution
from the other 11.
As from a methodology perspective, right? Like the to go back to Cole's like earlier thing, the box of stuff on the table is the same for all of them, but how you sort and organize it can be different for each, right? So they're, like I was saying before, they're all going to give you a starting point, they're all going to give you an ending point, we believe, and they're all going to get you from the start to the end. How they tell you where the start is could be different in all of them, how they tell you where the end is can be different. That's how we could have some paintings with the dig site indicator and others without. Like they can they can be different in that way.
Well, and also there's the difference
between, and then I forget.
Like there's the conversation about whether or not they are like journeys or like you're standing in one spot, and I think they can be both, right? Like, I mean, Cleveland walked you from one end of the park to the cask, essentially.
Cleveland's verse,
Chicago,
right?
Yeah.
Like
Chicago definitely took you for a bit of a walk.
Cleveland's verse, like, it's important to point out that park is the size of my living room. It's tiny.
Yeah,
I mean, not my living room, but it's smaller than my front yard.
But
like
it's still a little bit of a walk.
No,
but think about it from
no, it's legitimately my front yard.
Yeah.
You don't know my front yard; it's small.
Phil posted a really good walkthrough on YouTube
Forever ago. I'll try to find it and post it.
It's good. But so think about that from like a information fidelity perspective. If the verse is so hyper focused on this like one piece to get you behind this planter, then the rest of the information that you need to solve this puzzle has got to be in the painting, which anecdotally also makes sense because the guy painting it lived in the city that it's about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the spot is directly in the center of the painting, right? Like Cleveland is so obviously there in that picture, you know. I think maybe so far of the solved ones, Cleveland's the only one where you can literally, where the verse left off, go to the image or vice versa and find it. You know what I mean? Because it's right there.
Bill White would like to point out that Cleveland is 3 football fields, and I don't know what football fields he plays on, but they're tiny. I think he's mixing up the parks that are next to it because the cultural gardens are huge. They're miles long. The Greek cultural gardens, I'm not a very athletic section. Yeah, I'm not a very athletic person, but I can stand on one side and throw a football to somebody on the other side. Like, it's not that big. Like, the people hold weddings there. Like, the ceremony itself, and it takes up the whole damn park.
Yeah.
It's not big. The Italian section's huge. Either. Yeah, it's not. So, I don't know. Something that we just sort of glossed over that was important in what Chris said was that the puzzles, while they seem, the 3 that are solved, while they seem to work differently, they all give you the same information. And I think that's something that helps with what we were saying before, put us in bounds, right? Because when people hear like John Palancar say they don't all work the same, right? That gives people the opportunity to say, well, maybe the Florida puzzle is the one that starts in St. Augustine and ends in San Diego, you know?
Or the moon,
whatever. Yeah. But knowing that, yes, they do all give you this same information and how it's meant for you to interpret it, it's what works differently is a whole different world from starting in St. Augustine and in San Francisco or San Diego, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh,
anyway,
I mean, that comes back to like working within the boundaries of the puzzle. The verse and the painting at most, or like at minimum, the verse and the painting give us the information that we need to solve the puzzle, right? Like whether we understand that information is a different story, whether we need to go to other elements of the front of the book or the back of the book to understand those things is separate. At the end of the day, lead one picture with one verse, right? So then that's what takes us to like, okay, can you find, how am I trying to phrase it?
There's the baby.
Yeah, it's so distracted by babies.
Sorry, buddy.
No, you're good. It's cute.
It's too cute.
Well, see, and I think like
this is what the podcast needs, babies.
Tell me if I'm going completely off, like way out of field from where you were going there. But I think like when we hear the words "wed one verse with one image," it conjures up. Stop it.
Yes, this is quality content.
this idea that you have to have one next to the other, right? Whereas it seems that in reality they're layered within one another, right? Like there are verse and image things within each thing, and rather than read the verse then look at the picture, which I think a lot of people do, or vice versa, you've got to be doing them both almost in tandem, right?
Exactly.
In order to figure out how to connect the pieces.
That is better said than I could have said it. So
I'll have to go back.
Like I hope that didn't just derail what you were saying. That's kind of what I was hearing.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the points I was trying to make. Is that you have all the information is in these two things, and they're not necessarily, they can't necessarily be interpreted separately.
Right.
You need to interpret it together. So like that's what I was saying about Cleveland. The verse is so hyper focused on the dig area, give or take, like small little park, then all the other information we need is in that painting somewhere.
Yeah. Ohio,
whereas
the terminal tower,
and then Chicago has more of a play to it. It seems like there's a bit more back and forth, right? Like you've got the art museum with the ferry that's like pouring the water, and that's directly across from where M and B are set in stone. Like there's an interplay, I guess, or something. I don't know.
Interplay is a good word. Like that's how we should be looking at it, instead of like, linear fashion, or anything like that. Like you just can't really do that.
Excuse me.
That said, the Chicago verse does appear to go somewhat linearly, but also but with that in tandem. Like if you're looking at the water statue and you see M and B, and then you go to Congress and you see the Bowman, you're getting one of each as you're going through. You don't actually see a seated Lincoln, but is there something in the painting that is like some funny joke representation of Lincoln sitting or something like and then it sort of progresses from there to the next like thing that you see that's supposed to get you to the point.
I've always enjoyed, like, George, a while back you had during one of these Sunday Funday things, I think actually was one of the very first ones, you had kind of done a really quick walkthrough of Chicago, and the way you were doing it was you read a line from the verse and you saw a thing in the image and you found that thing in that spot, move to the next spot, right? Like it was giving you stations almost as to move on. So what Cleveland did with its image, it seems Chicago sort of did with its verse, and gave you the directions in that sense. So take 2 steps here, see this thing, keep going, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And whereas Cleveland was like, here's all the stuff that you're gonna see in the image, here's all the shit you're gonna see at the spot, follow these lines, right? I'll be right back. I gotta go help my kid.
I was thinking about that a while back, and like just to piggyback on what you, Chris, said about Lincoln. Where he does that in the Chicago verse is not necessarily each point along the puzzle, but it's where you have to turn. Like the only time he ever gives you an image match is you're turning, and you're turning in that direction, right? So if you start at the Symphony Hall, where M and B is set in stone, you're sitting there looking at a location. If you don't know this city, right? Which I can't see someone who doesn't know Chicago solving this. But if you don't know that city where M and B is set in stone and to Congress R is known, well, where is Congress? Like, you don't know which way to turn. But if you look to your left, that's where the Great Lakes statue is. So you know to turn that way. So you go to where Congress and Roosevelt is. Like, it's either the road or it's the 2 hotels with the giant signs, or the hotel and the university, whatever. Once you get there, you don't know which way to turn. But if you look to your left, there's the Bowman, you know to turn that way, right? Once you get to Lincoln, I mean, it tells you to the left and over his shoulder. You don't necessarily need that anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, it gives you explicit direction at that point.
Yeah.
Right?
But then we've got, like, Roanoke, which seems to take you 15 miles away. with no real, like, nothing really in the image to tell you where to turn, how to go. Like, the verse does a pretty good job of it, but still.
But it's clear from the nudge that there are things in the image that we still don't understand.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can say that there's nothing in there that's not telling us to turn or to do something else. Because there probably is. We just don't understand it.
So there was a comment earlier. There was a comment earlier, piggybacking off of this. There was a comment earlier asking which puzzles we thought were the hardest, and it's a question I'm sure all three of us get constantly. Like, I get it a lot. Judging from the three that were solved, I can't put the three that were solved in any list of easiest to hardest, right?
Because they're all solved differently.
Right. I really like with what Chris was saying before.
No, we can. Byron thought that Boston was easy. He wouldn't give a hint.
He wouldn't give a hint. Well,
right?
does that mean he thought it was easy, or does that mean he thinks anything would give everything away?
That's the thing. If all you need is to like pull out one pebble to make the whole thing come crashing down, like that probably means you think it's easier, on the easier side.
I would assume so.
And if we believe that the complexity is tied to the value of the gem, I think you've sort of put Chicago into the middle.
Yeah.
With that one.
I wonder what now that I think about it, I wonder what the value of Brian's gem is. Because that would tell us. Well, it would tell us how difficult St. Augustine was supposed to be. Like if it's a $600 gem.
Now you're solving puzzles.
You know what I'm saying? I got a plan. I talked to him. Somebody asked in the Facebook groups again about metal detectors, and I know that like John Michaels used a metal detector on the tribute cask, and that didn't really work. And then Matt Sparks used a metal detector on like a makeshift kind of ceramic thing, and that didn't work. But nobody's ever tested an actual cask. So I made this plan with Brian. We're going to like drive to his house. We're going to take his key, put it in a plexiglass box, and bury it like 1.5 feet underground, and see if my awesome professional metal detector will pick it up. So maybe I'll do that when he's there. I'll steal his gem and take it to a jeweler and be like, what's the approximate value of this, and what would it have been
in 1980?
Yeah, in 82.
Well, what sucks is like the only reason we know the value of the emerald is Rob's got the receipt for it, and it's got a valuation on it. And it's the same for Boston. Krupat's got the valuation of the. He didn't tell me what it was, but he's got the valuation of that. But I don't think Brian has his. I don't think Brian has the receipt. Otherwise, he would have known it was a sapphire.
Fair point. But the hardest has to be New York, right?
Yeah, it has to be New York.
But is that like, it's easy to say that because New York has the most wordy verse.
Well, no. Okay,
and
but
one of the least detailed images.
No.
Right?
That's
like
not
Montreal is the least detailed image, but I think that New York is pretty up there.
No.
But look at the New York verse. There are elements of that verse that appear in most of the other verses. Let me be more specific.
I get what you're saying.
The types of, so in the Charleston verse, there is a. This is why I didn't want to get too specific. Now I have to like look them up. I don't want to fucking read it and misquote. And
hey man, aren't you supposed to be referring to these as numbers and months?
Yes. In the, and that's the other thing. How do I remember?
While he's looking it up, I'll give you my answer, Cole.
Okay.
New York is the hardest to me because it's the place Byron knows the most about, right? So you're from Alberta, right? If you were to make a puzzle about Alberta and St. Augustine, really the only thing that you could get from St. Augustine is if you visited here, what you were able to see or what you could read in a book, right? But if you were to make one about Alberta, you know enough about its history, you know enough about its buildings, you know enough about its parks to know somewhere good you could hide something, right? You know enough to make it hard. And if you were going to make this a book that many people were going to solve, you would know that somebody in Alberta is going to get this book. You would want to make it difficult for someone there to solve, right? So he's making a puzzle that he wants it to be difficult. He knows New York like the back of his hand because he grew up there, but he wants to make it difficult for New Yorkers to solve it.
That's fair.
That's my opinion on why it's hard or hardest.
Yeah.
So what I've honed in on is that there's a lot of reuse in verse 10. So in verse 12, the puzzle is solving for the proper nouns that are represented as like single capitalized characters, MBRL, whatever. Verse 10, Isle of B. It uses that same puzzle style.
The V, same thing.
Right. So also there's ors in verse 10. There are ors in verse 6. So what it says to me is like seeing this stuff coming back is he's referencing stuff that he's already done in putting together these previous puzzles and showing you something that looks like what you may have already seen, but possibly could be making it more challenging.
Well, I think,
or that this is some kind of culmination of all those bits, putting them all together in a different way or something. I don't know.
right. I think too, though, that I like, not that I disagree with what you're saying at all, but having the ors in there, like, to me, says you are like, you're either going one direction or you're going the other direction. Right? You're looking at it this way or you're looking at it this way, right? So, for instance, that line where it's take as many east steps as the hour or more from the middle of one branch of the V. You know, if you're, let's say, here's a V, if you're coming from this side and you're going that way, you're going to take more steps than if you're coming from this side going that way. You see what I'm saying?
Or the 21 steps has nothing to do with the V at all. It's like take 21 steps this way, or if you're coming at it from the V, you're gonna have to take more, right?
Yeah,
like if you were if you were gonna walk to my neighbor's house that way, you'd have to walk 500 feet. But if you were to leave out my back door, you would have to walk more.
Right. But that's, yeah, and that's what I'm saying too. Is like so I've seen a lot of people talk about what's that building called, the Flatiron Building?
Mm-hmm.
Is it? We actually have one of those in a town not far from where I live. But you know, that building is shaped kind of like a V, and I think, you know what I mean. And I could see where people might say, if you're standing on this side of the building moving east, you're going to take more steps than if you're standing on the east side of the building moving east. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think people.
So he's just giving you options. He's basically just giving you options, saying if you're here, you're going to do this, but if you're here, you're going to do this, right? Just like in verse 5, you're basically standing in one spot, and it says from here you'll see the arc of lights, you'll see all this other stuff around you, and that's how you know. And then you reference the painting, which only has like a couple of actual details, like real identifiable details, and there you go. There you'll find the cask, right?
I have an example, example that helps support this. But like before that, I glanced at the comments, and I think people are having a way more in-depth discussion than we are, because like the first comment that I saw was, I would lean towards life in our universe is very common, just too unimaginably separate by distance. Like, our conversation's boring for everybody, and we're talking about extraterrestrial life now. That's fine. Charleston is a really good example of what you were just saying, right? May 1913 or Freedom at the Birth of the Century are two different ways, seemingly, to get to the exact same thing. Right? Mm-hmm. May 1913 being on a monument, it's not super huge. You would have to look at the monument to find it. But you would see May 1913 there on a monument for a ship that was destroyed in the early 1900s, late 1800s, during the
It was like
Cuban Revolution
1898 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was literally destroyed at
That's
the birth of a century in a war for freedom.
now you're hitting on my point, because you're saying the two clauses of the or are talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
So now take that idea and bring it back to verse 10. What if the two clauses of that or were talking about the same thing? And then in that interpretation, say we take, just follow me into the hole, like
Now I got to be a
say
Chris
we take
and
that
go
same
look up the verse.
interpretation. What the word more is on its own.
Yeah.
So what does more mean?
Yeah.
How can you play with words and be fun and kind and playful with the word more to get you to something that also means twice as many steps as the hour, which I don't know is necessarily referring to the clock in the painting. I'm not going to give that one a carte blanche. It could be something else.
I mean, I really with the way these paintings work, that clock in the square almost has to be Times Square and just a nod to New York.
Is Times Square?
Yeah, it almost
And
has
it
to.
is no, it is. I do firmly believe that Hard Times Square is a before and after, and that is the way to pair
Hard Times Square.
Hard Times Square.
Yeah.
That is. I'm a strong believer of that.
So
Well,
we talked
there's
about
the
it
other
before.
option.
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead. Oh, I was going to say we've talked about it before, and you mentioned it now. There's three fucking oars in that verse. 3 oars. And one of the huge fallacies that people are going through in New York is the same one that people used in that John railed on people using in Montreal forever. Lane 222. No, lane 222. It's not. The verse does not say take twice as many steps as the hour or more from one branch of the middle of the V. It doesn't say that. The verse says take twice as many steps as the hour or more from the middle of one branch of the V. Look down, right? We automatically, our brains put these things together as one continuous sentence when they're not.
Well, yeah. I've always kind of looked at New York as two verses, right? Like it's two verses telling you the same thing, like getting you to the same place, right? And again, a lot of that is because of the oars. But you look at the line about although the sign nearby speaks of Indy's native, the natives still speak of him of hard word. One guy I used to talk to about this all the time, who won't be named, we would discuss all the time: are the natives that are still speaking, are they the same as the Indies native? You know what I mean? That the sign is speaking about, right? Are those the same people? And it's showing you two different ways to understand that line, sort of thing,
I'll give you an underhanded jab at your comment. That sounds like something Phil would say.
But even with that, you could say that cars abound, although the sign go together, because say it's the sign is a stop sign, yet cars or no parking,
or no
yet
parking
cars
right outside
abound, right? So cars abound, although the sign,
yeah,
So
versus although the sign nearby speaks of Indy's native, right? It's
are you saying then that should be cars abound despite the sign?
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Yeah,
it could be. It could
be. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that that's one of the challenging pieces of this verse, is that you can it makes sense in these different little chunks. I
don't know. We got to get Chris on here more. We have a massive amount of viewers.
I couldn't reply to the comments, but one person asked if Boolean was even around in 1982, and George Boole fits right into the 19th century, mid 1800s thing I was talking about earlier.
George Boole.
I forget what Boolean theory
logic.
is. What is that? Boolean logic.
Boolean logic.
Boolean logic, I know, but George Boole.
So it's named George
It's
Boole.
named. Okay, it's named after George Boole. All right.
I just forget what Boolean logic is.
That's yours, Chris. You're a computer scientist.
It's true or false. That's truly all it is at a very
okay.
high
Very
level.
basic.
Yeah. It's Boolean. It's like and that's why it turned into like binary, like on or off, right? Like even with like electricity and stuff, like it's true or false. But that was in reference to the ors.
Yeah.
Where you know when you get into like logic tables with or and then you get into symbolic logic. And you, I'm gonna. I don't want to derail. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, please, Chris, tell us about your job.
No, man, that's not my job. That's like Cicada coming through. That's that's where
Gotta
all the
make
like
that
the
your
logic
job.
stuff.
One day we're gonna
I
talk about
wish.
Cicada.
We can't all just put professional treasure hunter in our LinkedIn and get away with it.
Yeah.
Oh
I
god,
wish.
that was a deep cut. One day we got to talk about Cicada. Like I don't feel like anybody would care, like the viewers, but I would.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they would
That'd be
not
fun.
We could get
enjoy
bread.
it.
We could get
It's-
bread in on that. He would love it. Cole, do you know anything about Cicada?
Yeah, I know quite a bit. When I first learned about rabbits, I had actually been studying ARGs, and cicada definitely came up. The I Love Bees from the Halo era ARG, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What actually started my journey down towards ARGs was 9 Inch Nails, Year Zero.
Oh yeah, Year Zero had a big like ARG.
Yeah,
Back in the
42
day.
Entertainment website has a big thing about it, and
That was the one where he was like leaving USB keys with songs and stuff in bathrooms or whatever
and
for people to
websites.
find.
Well,
yeah.
it all started with the back of one of the T-shirts from the With Teeth tour had the dates of the tour, but certain letters were like whiter than others, and somebody figured out that was a website. And as soon as they found the website, he started to leave these USB keys with new websites and song snippets and stuff. And then they actually had a concert that was rated. Like they
Yeah, I remember the video for that.
they had a big raid of a concert where and the people that got arrested were thrown on a bus and taken to a private warehouse where they were given a private performance of Year Zero like 6 months before it came out or something like that.
That's so cool.
It was nuts, man.
Stuff.
Yeah, ARGs are crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Some dude named Who
yeah.
Cares says Cicada's super interesting and he'd watch the show. Sorry.
All right.
Didn't mean to derail that.
Rabbits is like full of cicada worship, which I love. Just finished season 2. Good time.
Nice. Good for you. Have you read the book yet?
Yeah, well, I did the audiobook.
Oh,
'cause Who has time to like sit and read?
But isn't
Well,
the
I
book
do.
a puzzle?
It is. The book is also a game. Yeah.
Oh. Hard to do that on an audiobook.
It beyond being a story?
Hold on. Yeah, just 1 second.
Yeah.
Oh, why do
We
I
just-
have Audible at all? I'm
we
like
just blew Chris's mind.
percent of the fidelity here.
Did you? So was season 2 okay? Because I stopped after season 1. Because it kind of like I listened to the first couple episodes of season 2 and it was like, eh.
Okay. So you'll notice I have all these guys.
Oh, shit.
This is the book, Rabbits by Terry
Yeah,
Miles.
yeah.
So what they have on here, and I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, so I'm not going to tell you who anybody is, but each chapter starts with, hold on, there's this image right here. It's called The Missives by Hazel. Okay.
Oh, yeah. They
If you look
speak
around
them.
the corners of this page, it's Morse code.
Oh, fuck.
See that? And there are
What the
9.
shit.
There are 9 of them, and it leads you down a rabbit hole essentially. And there is a prize at the end of it. Took me 2 months, and I figured it out before I went to Reddit.
So the
Oh,
prize is
God.
something everybody can
Alright.
get?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
Love it. But that's the thing. That's what we don't have in The Secret is that like objectivity. Like this is Morse code. It becomes these words. You go here, right? It's
Yeah.
like they gave so many different ways that you could get to the same answer in The Secret that we can't seem to agree on any of them. And in doing so, can't get anywhere.
Kids are awesome.
That's the best costume.
He's got a Tyrannosaurus box costume. It's cute. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We don't really have that.
I like to, it's a point of pride for me. I still like to point out that I firmly believe that Rabbits was based on something me and Brett did.
Okay, never.
100%.
Rabbits is an ancient game, George. It's been around forever.
You know how old Brett is? He's old.
That's true.
I mean, the first iteration was 1959, so yeah, that's probably around.
Well, no, it was around before 1959. It was called Rabbits for the first time, I think, in 1959. I have path cards.
Oh yeah, you bought that.
I got some path cards from South Elk.
I love that they get so into it, right? And it's like they make a fake website to sell a fake thing that's like in the story. That's like season 2 stuff, George. It's worth for like the 10 hours or whatever that it is. Like,
yeah. Well, the podcast itself is also a puzzle, right?
Sort of.
Is it?
Or is it just like a mystery?
I just thought it's a cool story.
Yeah, and they'll do things like they'll cut off commercials, like the last 10 seconds of a legit commercial, to have a code brought in, and then you have to figure out where that code goes, kind of thing. But for the most part, the podcast is just like the stories of people playing Rabbits, right?
Mm-hmm. All right,
yeah, that's fun.
And that's how I found the secret, was Rabbits. I did not find it through EU. And
does H know Byron Preiss?
Yeah.
It's like episode 1.
Yeah.
So I guess shortly we're gonna end because it's 10 o'clock. But I have one question, just to finish it all, because a lot of stuff has come out in the past year and a half, right? A lot of like the actual images, all the notes, the nudge, just all kinds of different shit. When I started this hunt, I thought, and I'm on record a lot saying that I thought Byron was a bad puzzle maker. Like the secret is difficult not because it's difficult, but because it's bad. Chris, you didn't start out with that thought, right? Like you didn't think it was just a bad puzzle?
I didn't, but I've
changed your mind. Yeah. Cole, did you start out thinking this was a bad puzzle?
If I'm being really honest, I never really looked at it as a good or bad because I had no metric to compare it to. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know about Masquerade really. I didn't know about ARGs at that point. Well, I guess I did, but not as deeply as I do now. And I mean, it's a complex puzzle and it's a hard puzzle for me personally. Does that make it a good puzzle? I don't know. Right? If a puzzle is hard, does that make it good? Those are questions that I ask. I don't really think of it in terms of good or bad.
That good puzzle is going to let you know when you've completed a step, and it's going to direct you to whatever the next step is.
Right.
As obscure as it might be, or as challenging as it might be, it's going to push you in the direction of the end eventually.
Right.
Bad puzzles don't have that. Bad puzzles require the only way for you to know that something is right is to dig it up. That's a bad puzzle. Where's the confirmation along the way where we can stop arguing because somebody figured out that this thing is correct, confirmed by some other thing that we didn't see. Like Fandango had the same problem, and that's why it was unsolved for 10 years, is that its confirmation was too vague. And it didn't, people were finished a step and given information that should have unlocked the answer but didn't, because the connection just wasn't objective enough.
Right.
So when you look at a treasure trove, that's like an example of a good puzzle that did have, like, it was oh, I'm getting chirped so hard from the Cole's just very unhappy with my answer.
That's sort of the way that I look at the secret now. Like before I thought it was just bad because it was like he just wasn't good in a general sense. But now I see it as, like you were saying before, when you solve a good puzzle, one step doesn't necessarily tell you the answer to the second step, but it puts you in a direction to find the answer to the second step. Like a good puzzle, the first step is always the hardest. The first step of that puzzle, figuring out how this puzzle starts, is always the hardest, because that leads you into the second, which leads you into the third, and you no longer have to worry about, once you get to 3, you no longer have to worry about 1 or 2, right? But the secret is comprised of, say, one verse has 10 or 11 lines that are all first steps. Every single one of them is a first step. And the second step doesn't necessarily confirm the first. The third step doesn't necessarily confirm the first 2. You could have step 4 completely solved and still not understood step 1 to 3, right? That's what makes it, to me, a bad puzzle, which is basically me saying the exact same thing Chris said in a different way.
But when you think about it too, like, no step is technically step 1, 2, or 3, right? Like, they're all steps, but technically, like, you could still, if you knew the steps to get to the Cleveland cast, you could do them in any order and still arrive at that cast. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe. In hindsight, but in hindsight, you could do that with most puzzles.
But until you were standing in front of that wall, you wouldn't know that you were in the right place.
Right.
Yeah.
But I bet someone had an interpretation that put them somewhere else using all the same information and had as much confidence.
But given...
Well, look at Brian, Zane, and Andy, right? Brian dug on the left side of the box, should have dug on the right side of the box. You know? They had the same information.
Yeah.
But given what we were just saying, one of the major difficulties in the secret is, let's see, Cleveland is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's 15 lines long. And the last step is line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is line 7. Like, we don't even know where the beginning and end is in these verses. Right. They're not linear, which makes it exponentially more
we
difficult.
Don't know that the beginning or end is even in the verse.
Yeah.
That's right.
So my question was going to be, with all of this stuff that's come out, has your opinion on whether or not it's a bad puzzle changed? And Chris, it seems by your answer it has. Cole, you just didn't think about it. Mine, it has. I still think it's a bad puzzle, but in a different way.
I mean, I thought it was a bad puzzle before the hints, all this stuff came out.
But I don't know. Like, I don't know necessarily that I haven't figured out if I like these or not yet. Like, I haven't figured out if I like the nudge or the notes. I mean, whether or not I like them doesn't matter. If they come in, I'll put them out. But I haven't. What do either of you like that? Do you think they're adding any value?
I mean, the nudge gave us something, a different way to think about something that. Did
it? Because everybody that took the nudge everybody that took the nudge, to me, at least publicly, just seems to force it into however they were thinking before.
Yeah, but that doesn't. What the importance of the nudge is that there's clearly stuff that. So it's one thing to say there's something staring you right in the face, and you look at it and be like, what the hell does that mean? And it's another thing to be like, look at this, look at these elements. Something's going on here. Good luck, right?
And also look at them a certain way. Right? Like, don't just look at them for face value, right? You got to look at them for, in a different sense, right? Like the plus minus
just
thing.
Match it to overhead maps.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But that's I guess the answer to my question is really going to depend on the type of searcher is interpreting the nudge, like whether or not it helps. Because if you're the kind of searcher who's dead set in your ways, you're just going to shoehorn that in wherever you can. If not, maybe it changes the way you look at. I don't know.
I mean, I think the intention of the nudge was to get people to start looking at the paintings differently, because historically we haven't necessarily been looking at them right.
Yeah.
En masse. I'm sure there are people who are looking at them right or closer than others, but I think the majority have been not necessarily treating it as a puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh God! Somebody just asked, "What is the nudge?" It's on Facebook. You're on Facebook. I can see that little thing on your comment. You're on Facebook. Just Google Google.
Just
search
search
for the nudge.
Go into the Facebook group, search the word nudge.
Yeah, you'll find it.
Or
it's there.
Whirling dervish.
Yeah, whirling dervish is probably.
That's another thing. Like going back to something we were saying earlier about what level of depth are they doing? Are they? What level of depth of research is useful or whatever? Like,
or necessary.
what the hell is a whirling dervish, and how is that? What you know what I mean? Like, if we're talking about like esoteric information here, like that was new to me, and like I am full of esoteric information.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's there's depth to the puzzles, and I believe that Byron was very smart, but that doesn't mean he made a good puzzle. From a puzzle perspective, he made it a very interesting puzzle, an intriguing puzzle, a maddening puzzle, a addictive puzzle, but not a good puzzle.
Somebody else wants to explain the nudge. Okay, just as a general sense, someone who knows what they're talking about, who sort of had a hand in the book. There are two of them. They have both created an account, and they got together and they made a post, which is not necessarily a hint about the secret, but a push in the correct direction. And the person who asked that, the only reason I answered it's the person who asked that's on YouTube. And if you look at our channel, there's a thing about the nudge. You can watch it. I guess that's it. I guess we're done. This was fun. We got to do this shit more often.
Guys.
I love doing this.
Chris, you can come on every week. It's fun. Just every week.
Quick.
You guys, I guess you're not doing your podcast anymore. Just come in and do Sunday Fun Day with us.
I'm usually around on Sundays. If there's
do
a good topic.
Do you guys have
Seems
plans?
like
Are you gonna do anything else? Are you guys planning it? Like, I don't. If you can't say, don't. But are you guys planning anything?
I don't believe there are any plans at this time.
Then you and Phil, John, even I guess you're all more than welcome. Just come on anytime. Yeah.
I would dig having a conversation with John.
Yeah. Having a conversation with John can be fun.
Phil
too.
I haven't
Phil,
talked to John in in a few weeks, and it'd be good to get him on a chat sometime.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, we're gonna cut out. We gave the thing away to Mark Bugsby, and then I'll do a drawing for another one and make it to where it's just because like I realized that Cole could only see Facebook comments, and we're getting a lot from YouTube, so that cut out the YouTube people. So I'll do a drawing, and we'll just.
Draw one from the YouTube people. That'll be random drawing.
Yeah, sorry, YouTube people. I wasn't just completely ignoring you. I didn't know you were there.
I'll make sure I get you in. All right, guys. Have a good night.
All right.
Peace.
Stay cool, guys.